You're listening to the Bluejay Breakdown.
Welcome to Bluejay Breakdown. Anna Bellinghausen and Jacob Padilla alongside with you, breaking down Creighton women's hoops first, and started off with a loss for the Blue Jays, 76-71 in Brookings against SDSU, a team that's been a perennial powerhouse in the Summit League. Brooklyn Meyer, Summit League Player of the Year, that reigning award for her, and it was a tough matchup for the first game of the year. And what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, last week Mike Sauter and I talked about how tough of an opener that is, and just kind of the ass that Jim Flannery has put on his team to start the season with. You got we're recording this on Monday. They got Drake 2017 Drake team coming to Omaha for the home opener, which again not an easy one. No. Just like the opener going to Brookings. And I mean, they were up at half, and then second half, it just got away from them. And I think this game in particular, really exposed the questions that we had about and how they weren't quite ready, to answer them in the first game. And they've got time. It's a long season. Again, one game, in the books, and they'll only be better for it down the road. But, you look at it, they need more firepower with Emma Ronsick on, and they struggle. And you wonder how they'd match up with big, really good front court players for other teams. And kind of they didn't really do either one in this game. Brooklyn Meyer, this you mentioned, she had 12 points in third quarter when they took the lead. They outscored Creighton 23-17, and then Creighton never got back into it. Good run for South Dakota State to start the fourth quarter there and pull away. So didn't really have an answer for her. Finish again, efficient 17, 6 boards there, and then everybody else got involved as well. While Creighton 23 for Lauren Jensen, Morgan Molly 11 on 5 of 14 shooting. So that's 2 games in a row we've seen so far, including the exhibition where hasn't played her best. And then you look at it combined between Jensen and Molly. 2 of 13 from 3. And you kind of wonder, all right, what kind of threes are they going to get with the offensive load that they have to carry
right
now without Ronsick kind of completing that trio. And they didn't really get quite what they needed outside of them either to keep up. If we want to go positive signs, Keani Lockett, again, she was kind of the story from the exhibition as the fifth starter there. Plugging in, and she did a great job in this one. 12 points, 5 of 7 from the field, hit 2 threes, had 3 assists, no turnovers. So that continues to be a bright spot from the season. If you get that kind of play from her going forward, you would expect Molly to get going here at some point. You know, Jensen's going to be there. Then you feel pretty good about that team. I think you need Kennedy Townsend to step up a little bit more than she did in the opener. She should be kind of the primary source of offense off the bench. Only 3 points, 2 shots in 21 minutes in the opener. So definitely some areas for them to clean up. But like I said, at the end of the season, this isn't going to be a bad loss when you look at the resume.
Yeah. I mean, if you mentioned the schedule already, but it's a gauntlet of a schedule to open up and try to figure things out, especially off a season where you're losing, like you mentioned, Emma Ronsick, and such a key component in the paint for them, and also from 3 too. So it's tough when you don't have that production out of your top 2 girls, and then you look down the line and you're not really getting that production from Molly Mogensen. Keani, yes, but then like you mentioned, Kennedy Townsend not necessarily stepping in. So is there another player on this roster? Like, what about Brooke Littrell too? Could you see her getting in the mix a little bit more? Do they need to use her more?
Yeah, I think she's probably, 5 points, 3 boards and an assist in 9 minutes in that opener. She's going to kind of be just the backup there. I think she's still adjusting to this level of play.
Yeah.
I know she had some personal matters that impacted her during the preseason, so that makes the transition even more difficult. So I don't necessarily know that she's going to come in and replace Emma Ronsick, but she can play an important role on this team. Her skill set fits what they want. Obviously, that's why they went out and got her, but yeah, I think it's going to be more of a collective than necessarily her stepping in and replacing that production.
Well, when you play these tough opponents, you don't really get much of an adjustment period necessarily when you're playing teams like Drake and then Kansas State and then Nebraska. So there's a lot of firepower within those opponents. And I mean, Jim Flannery has talked about why he schedules those opponents, and it is really to build that resume, and especially when you're in the Big East where you're playing teams that might not be in those quad 1-2 wins if you beat them. And yeah, I don't know. The non-conference is a tough slate for the Blue Jays, but I mean, they can bounce back tonight against Drake, but they also very well could lose that matchup too to another, like you mentioned, a great Drake team that's made the NCAA tournament.
And you look at it, and if you listen to this before Monday night's game against Drake, they have a 6'3" forward named Anna Miller who's averaging 23 and 11 during Drake's 2-0 start. They have wins over St. Louis and North Dakota State, so there's a challenge. You go down to Manhattan to take on Kansas State. They've got a 6'3" senior who's 18 points and 17 points and 8 boards in their first 2 games for Kansas State. We know Alexis Markowski down at Nebraska, so they're.
They got their hands full.
Yeah, they're going to get a chance to experiment and try to figure it out early because there is no chance to rest because every team they play to start during this tough stretch has a really talented post player with good size.
Absolutely. Biggest points of improvement. What do you need to see out of this Drake game tonight at 6 p.m.?
Hopefully, Morgan Molly. She kind of got banged up a little bit at the end of that South Dakota State game. Friend Matt DeMarinis was there for White and Blue Review, and he said Jim Flannery said thinks that she'll be okay. So hopefully can be healthy and can go out there and have a Morgan Molly game. Shoot the ball well because that's what they need from her moving forward. She's got it. We talked about in the preseason, they need her to be consistent this year, and she hasn't been that just yet.
Yeah, and I think that'll do a lot for her confidence as well, and just kind of getting back in the role of things. And like you mentioned last year, it was a streaky performance at times for Morgan Molly, but we also know her capabilities as a player and how good she can be. So it's not like that just goes away. Yeah. She's still that type of player. Just need to see it on the court now.
100%.
All right, well, let's flip over to the men's side of things. Last night, a victory over FDU, 96-70. Almost got to that 100 mark. Could have, maybe, but doesn't matter. FDU did come off with a 10-2 start, so they were tested early, the Blue Jays, but ended up pulling away 96-70. What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, they second straight game, they kind of struggled a little bit, found themselves in a close game, like late in the first half. And then this time they kind of clicked it into gear and pulled away and stretched the lead out to 35 before the deep bench got in there to finish the game. And it really was just they got stops. They really kind of locked in on defense. They got more disruptive. They did a better job of communicating. We saw early on there were some mistakes there where they gave up some open looks. FDU hit some tough ones as well. But so credit to them, they were making shots early and they went 4 or 5 from 3 to start the game, and that was a big part of why Creighton was trailing at that point, about 14 minutes in. But then they completely locked them up for the next about 18 minutes of game time, and looked like what they need to look like. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner continues
doing his thing.
Yeah, we'll talk in a minute about what he did in the first game, but 24 points in 23 minutes, only missed 1 shot, hit a jab step, dribbled to his left, fading 3 at the end of the shot clock. Just confidence. Just knocked it down, walked back on defense. Like it
was nothing.
Yeah, he's playing at a completely different level right now. And that's what you were hoping to see when he decided to come back. Greg McDermott had the conversation with him like, hey, if you're going to do this, you can't come back as the same player.
No.
You got to come back as a completely different player. And so far this season, he's been assertive.
You took that
he's been dominant. Yeah, he's done exactly that. So that's been the story of the season so far. He's just named Big East Player of the Week for the first time in his career. So we'll talk about how he did this, but 36.5 points on a basically 96 true shooting percentage through his first 2 games.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been following along, all kinds of crazy stats and play first since only other player 2. So some of the names thrown in that I've seen, like it's been compared to Dirk Nowitzki,
Bill Walton.
Yeah, Bill Walton, nearly set or did set one Creighton program record, nearly set another. Like the things he's done so far this season are just incredible. And if he continues to play like this, then the defensive player of the year, we're not stopping there. I think he's going to be.
He started his campaign.
Yeah, for the national player of the year.
Yeah, I hope everyone is taking notice of Ryan Kalkbrenner. But I mean, we have to go back to that 49-point performance. It's hard not to talk about. Obviously, 51 points was the Creighton record for a single game.
In 1967. So.
Yeah, so I guess that's good. He scored more points than Doug McDermott ever did in a single game in a Creighton uniform. So pretty darn good. 20 of 22. So the made field goals with 20 was a Creighton single game record. So he did get something in the record books at least from that game, and plenty more accolades obviously will come his way. But I think the best part about it is I spoke to Ryan afterwards off camera, and I was just like, has that sunk in yet that you just did that? He goes, we just needed to play better. I'm like, Ryan, you just scored 49 points and you're telling me the team needs to play better? Like, yes, obviously the game, he carried that team and they needed all 49 points, but it was just funny to me that the first thing out of his mouth was just like, we got to play better, man.
Yeah. No, and that's McDermott talked about that in the press conference too. That's just who he is. Yeah. He's a humble guy. He's always been that way. Heck, it told you at the start, like after his freshman year, he was starting to look for internships because he thought he would be done with basketball after 4 years at Creighton. So that is not the case. He's going to have a long career in this sport with the improvement he's shown. And you mentioned they need every bit of it, especially with Pop Isaacs not playing in that first one. He did made his debut against FDU. So that was good to get him back out there. But we talked about it's Kalkbrenner, Ashworth, and Isaacs are going to kind of carry the offensive load for this team. And then outside of them, it's like, all right, who's going to step up in this given game? And so without one of those big three there, you needed somebody to step up. And Kalkbrenner more than covered for that production. And I put together a thread on his opening game on my Twitter account. Just go check that out. Just broke down every single way that he scored, and it's not just catch and finish. It's not lobs. Like he earned the majority of those points. And the team did a great job of continuing to find him. Good post feeds. Jemiah Neal and Stephen Ashworth in particular fed him for most of his buckets. And that's the way that Creighton's going to need to continue to play this season. You have to play through him. And UTRGV did not really double team outside of a few times. And we saw Fairleigh Dickinson much more aggressive with double teams, with sending help against fronts with backside help. And Creighton did a poor job of making them pay for that in that game. Shot poorly from 3, 10 to 33. Got some really good looks from really good shooters that didn't go down. I would expect that to change moving forward. They'll have some games where if teams defend Kalkbrenner the way that they did, then Creighton's going to hit 15 threes on them at a good clip. And even with the defensive attention, he still found his way to 24 points in 23 minutes. He sat down 5 minutes into the half and never returned. So, just torrid pace that he's been on so far. And that's biggest story of Creighton so far. And then Stephen Ashworth, 16 assists through the first 2 games. Didn't shoot the ball well in the first game, but went 17 to 17 from the free throw line, which is the most in a single game without a miss in program history. And then followed that up, hit 5 threes and scored 15 points with his 9 assists against Fairleigh Dickinson. So he's off to a great start. He really seems to be comfortable settling into the way that they need him to play.
Well, Jacob, you mentioned it. We know who the big 3 are, obviously Kalkbrenner, Ashworth, and then Isaacs. But the question kind of remains, who's going to be that offensive spark beyond those 3? I think it was Jemiah Neal, truly, in this last game. And then we also can talk about a little bit later, but Isaac Trout and Jason Green and them kind of going back and forth. But let's start with Jemiah Neal and what you saw from him.
13 points and all in transition and just shot out of a cannon. You really see his athleticism there. And another one, go check out the Bluejay breakdown page on hurrdatsports.com. I've got an in-depth film study on Jemiah Neal from his time at Arizona State, kind of showing, all right, this is what he's capable of. This is why he wasn't terribly efficient at Arizona State, but also these are the skills that made him a good fit for Creighton and why the Jays went after him. And you saw, at least in that aspect of the game, why in that one, because Had 2 dunks, 4 other transition buckets, including an and one. Still kind of finding his way in the half court. We're seeing him kind of struggle to find that balance between being aggressive, looking for a shot, and setting up his teammates. And he's done a good job of making plays for others in every game we've seen thus far. But also he's turned down some looks that have put the team in maybe a tougher situation than if he had just gone up with the shot.
Sure.
So he's still figuring that out. But in the transition, like there's not a whole lot of decisions to make. You got numbers, go to the basket and go finish. And he certainly did that at a high level. And that's how they turned the game around. They got stops and they ran. And 19-0 fast break point edge for them in this game. So that's kind of really he played a big part in that run to finish the half where they turned the game from a close one into 20-point game at half. And they're going to need that from him. Like he's the shooting will be may not be there every single game, and he hasn't hit a 3 yet. But they need that athleticism. They need that rim pressure from him. And they're playing at a great pace. And he's one of the guys that can really take advantage of that if they're able to continue to get stops. Yeah,
that was the biggest thing Greg McDermott said difference-wise between last year and this year is just how much speed this team has, and Jemiah Neal is a huge part of that, looked a lot more confident. Do want to mention that Isaac Trout got the start yesterday, 3rd career start. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I had 11 points in the opener, shot the ball well, hit 3 threes when maybe not a lot of other guys were shooting it great in that game. And then Jason Green, you can still see him kind of maybe not being totally comfortable in his rhythm offensively. He missed a little bit of time right before the season was getting set to start. So that's unfortunate, but you got Trout out there for the start. Trout only hit threes, zeros the rest of his box score in that opener. He didn't shoot well, only 1 of 5 from 3 in the start, but he did other things. He had 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 assists. So it's good to see him impact the game in ways outside of shooting. And the 1-3 hit was off a skip pass when they double team Kalkbrenner. Like those are the shots that he has to hit. In that weak side corner when teams load up against Kalkbrenner, he's a guy that's got to be able to space it for and make teams pay for it. And he did on that play, and they need him to continue to do that. And it continues to be a rotation between Green, Trout, and Jackson McAndrew, who didn't score in the opener, but scored 13 points in this one and only hit 1 3. He was doing it at the basket. He had a couple of layups. He had a putback. He had a couple of rebounds there as well. So just kind of showing off the versatile skill set, because he is more than just the standstill shooter.
Yeah, that was the best part of my interview with him. You can, again, watch that on YouTube or X. But Jackson McAndrew just saying, hey, I'm not just a shooter. I can do more than that. And I think that's what's going to make him so valuable to this team, because obviously he'll draw a lot of attention from the 3-point line. But how can you draw attention away from other players and get in the paint?
And that's the difference between shooters and great players is, you can shoot, but if teams really close out, can you make them pay that way too? Pump fake, put the ball on the deck, go make a play for yourself or others. And just watching his high school tape, he certainly has the potential to be that kind of player.
Absolutely. Well, Creighton up next will play Houston Christian. That is Wednesday night, 8 p.m. tip-off. What are you looking forward to in that matchup?
Yeah, Houston Christian, they lost 90-59 to Texas after beating a non-Division I opponent in their opener. So another game, they're 358th in KenPom right now. So hopefully, if Creighton does what they're supposed to, it's not going to be a tight game late in the first half. They should be able to take control of this one early, and again get a lot of players playing time and get a chance for some of the young guys there. And we even saw the kind of backcourt rotations. Another one where McDermott said Ty Davis is kind of the backup point guard, but Shane Thomas could get the call too as that first guard off the bench, the redshirt freshman walk on, if they want more of a defensive focused contribution there at that spot. So just continuing to see kind of those bench pieces and how do those guys fit in? What skill sets do they show? Can they carve out a role with this team?
Absolutely. Well, we'd be remiss not to mention that yesterday's win tied the coaching win leaderboard with Greg McDermott and Dana Altman. So if this is the next win on Wednesday, Greg McDermott will be the winningest coach in Creighton basketball history. Pretty crazy stuff, Jacob.
Yeah, he's had a pretty fantastic career, and been fortunate here to have been there along for the ride. I started as a student there covering closer to the start of his career. And now here I am back in second year covering the program with Hurrdat Sports. So it's been pretty cool to kind of see the trajectory of the program under his leadership, and he's got it now at a point that we've never seen before.
I know. When you think back to your college days, did you foresee this at all?
Not really, although so I was there when they made the transition to the Big East my junior years, their first year in the Big East. So at that point, once they were able to have success that first year, like, okay, maybe they've got a chance here. Fortunately, the following year was the kind of the one down year of the entire McDermott tenure, but how quickly they turned it around from there. I just the way they've continued to build the program at that point is like, yeah, he's got this. He knows how to succeed at this level.
I think if you would have told McDermott how many Sweet 16s and an Elite Eight appearance, I don't know if he would believe you. Maybe he would, but I mean the growth of that program going from the Missouri Valley and being a potential 1 or 2 seed in that Big East tournament year after year, it's been really cool to see, and it's fun to see the growth, and it's great for college hoops, and it's great for the city of Omaha.
Yep, looking forward to be there to kind of tell the story as they look to push the program further, even further forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining the Bluejay Breakdown, and we will talk to you next week.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.